Hello, my name is Yatatu Reimer. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. I'm a second-year filmmaking student, and today I have the pleasure of meeting with Dr. Chigbo Anyaduba, and he is an associate professor in the Faculty of Arts. I'm very appreciative of you being here, so thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I just want to begin to ask you, what is your area of research or specialization that you're researching currently?
Okay, my area of specialization is African literatures, which is what I teach mostly here. But my interest is literatures of genocides and mass atrocities, especially focusing on mass atrocities occurring in what you might call post-colonial African context, specifically Nigeria and Rwanda.
Fascinating. Thank you. So I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about what it was like growing up for you in the sense of like school and academics. Was this something you always wanted to pursue, or was it something that came later in life?
I think I have been a schooled person for a very long time. I was raised by a single mom who, before she retired, was an elementary school teacher. So all my aunties I knew very closely were all teachers. So essentially, I've been an academic person more or less. I don't have. I think my memory of early school years is a bit fuzzy, but I studied in what you call Eastern or Southeastern Nigeria, and did my university in the southwestern part of Nigeria. Did my so if you finish university in Nigeria, you are usually mandated to do a 1-year volunteer service. So after that, I did mine in a school as a teacher, right? So, and then returned for my master's, and then came to Canada for my PhD. So, more or less, I've been in school.
In school.
Yeah.
That's very, very fascinating. I also grew up in a family of teachers, and yeah, I have family who went from one school to another and are still in school now teaching, and they really enjoy it. So academics has always been a passion for you. Who, I know you mentioned your mother and your aunts and other people who are family, who inspired you or influenced you to like pursue this career in Canada, in Nigeria, wherever you found mentors or influences or inspirations?
I think my mom is my major influence, right? I grew up being this kind of a person who couldn't talk or express, and I meant like literally not able to talk or express difficult things vocally. So she introduced me to letter writing. So when I did something bad, she would write a letter and explain what I had done, and then I had to write a reply and all that. So that got me much more into literature, the kinds of things I do, and writing. So at a very young age, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I knew I wanted to be a teacher. At some point, I wanted to actually be a doctor. Later on, a lawyer, because people felt, oh, you could do much better as a lawyer. But when I came into my own awareness of what I wanted, it was really to be a professor and to write. And I stayed with that. And I had, again, all the support from my family to pursue that.
That's amazing. That's, I think, yeah, very similar to a lot of people who say that it's family first before you get to university or high school or wherever, that often the inspiration starts at home.
Yeah. And I also had a couple of great teachers over the years that made all the difference for me. In particular, there was my honors and master's supervisor, Professor Chigbo Anyaduba, who is now retired, was a great influence. Actually, it was a lot of what I do now is modeled after what I learned from him, right? Because he was that kind of professor storyteller who doesn't teach but actually teaches. You know, like he just makes it look so easy, like teaching isn't happening, He was a huge influence and a great inspiration for me. Then a couple of other teachers who were really, really great and went out of their way to inspire us as students. Most of them in Nigeria, actually. So, yeah.
So when you did come to Canada, you were not immediately at the University of Winnipeg, were you?
No, I was at the University of Manitoba. I came to do my PhD
yes.
there. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and there at the University of Manitoba, I also met really great teachers. I think one standout person was Professor Diana Bryden, who was very, very, very influential. Her energy was unmatchable. I haven't seen anyone who works as hard as that woman. Yeah, so she made a lot of difference for me. She wasn't my supervisor eventually, but she was more or less like the supervisor of supervisors for me. Yeah, she was great.
And then on a bit of a different note, but following the same your academic pathway and journey that ended up here, what have been some of the significant challenges while on this road? Because it's not, people I think often think you're in school, like we said, you're in school from a child onward, you stay in school, but school gets harder and harder, and there are more, not hoops to jump through, but just more to do when it comes to your studying. And were there any challenges specifically in your pathway that you saw throughout your journey to come to the U of W that you could cite?
Oh, I think schooling in and of itself is very challenging, right? Because again, coming from an African context, the history of colonization, school wasn't designed to make you a better person. It was designed to destroy you, actually. Schooling was one way that colonial systems tried to destroy indigenous or colonized kids and their ability to be part of their colonized societies. So it was a weapon, a cultural but also an epistemic weapon. So it's in school we learned about that. That's the irony, right? And that coming to a different awareness of the work school is doing and your place in it, I think is one of the biggest challenges that some of us who leave our African places to this place had to grapple with constantly. There were so many other challenges, having to do with, again, coming from a humble background, finances, access to things. But then you don't get a fuller picture of things until you come over to this place, and then you're dealing with racism and dealing with different kinds of tokenistic gestures and violence, actually, and yeah, so discriminations of different kinds. So those are not small challenges, because they are everyday kind of violence that you have to live through and then have to figure out how to navigate through those. Yeah, and then the rigor of it, of what you do. Intellectual work is actually difficult work, so you have to work constantly, you have to study, you have to read. For some of us, it's you always constantly feeling you are not good enough, so you want to overread, you want to overdo the work, and so many things stacked against you, and you just have to find a way to sort of navigate through those. Yeah, but there are fun aspects as well, right? So, which keeps one going, right? Yeah. Because without those fun, you probably wouldn't be able to do it.
I think academics in Canada and in everywhere as well, but specifically in the Canadian sense right now, that it is so important that we have people like yourself who are in the academic field, that are professors, that are, despite all these challenges that you've just mentioned, have been resilient and fought through it. And it's fascinating you talk about, there's the mental load academically, because it's school and it's hard, and then there's the mental load as, a student new to Canada, studying, and just the like floodways open of all the possible things that you have on your mind at any given time while you're doing the same things that your counterparts are doing or your classmates are doing, but just everything's a little bit harder and there's a little bit more to it, which is very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, also because the school, again, is like I knew when I newly joined this university, one of the major, it wasn't a challenge per se, but it was, and it's not even past. I still had something like that this term, right? Where students, professors, administrators would think I was maybe a student trainee, or maybe a contract professor who is a student. I would go out with a senior colleague, Kim, for example, and they would ask whether I was his student, which is okay. Like Kim could easily be my prof, right? But even when I introduced myself as a professor, they would say, "Oh yeah, so contracting." So there was always that impulse to demote you or put you where you are mentally supposed to belong. And that's because, again, of a history where you don't have many black professors, for example, teaching folks. So it's natural for people to think black people cannot be that kind of professor, right? But maybe it's changing, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to know, what do you have to do consciously or unconsciously to unlearn or combat, even in your own mind, just these, not stereotypes, but these labels that people have put on you, or these, like you said, demotions in your workplace could be very challenging. And what do you, in your own head, have to do to combat that?
To just be your own person, have your own personal convictions about yourself, never judge. Again, one of the things school does to us is that it grades. We are constantly graded. So school is the place where we are ranked. The hierarchies of all the social problems we have, they begin in schools where we rank people. So if you first disabuse your mind of those models of ranking, and know that nobody assesses you better than yourself. In fact, that you don't even need an assessment, right? You are full, you are okay. Then every other thing doesn't fully, they don't matter so much. They may affect you, but they wouldn't define you. They wouldn't sort of fundamentally alter your sense of yourself. So I think for me, it's that first conviction about myself and about what I do, and being okay with that without necessarily wanting to be someone else or want some kind of acknowledgement from elsewhere before I consider myself full. I think that helps me.
Thank you. So according to the University of Ottawa's 2019 to 2020 Diversity and Inclusion report, Black professors made up only 2% of professors in all of Canada. And with that in mind...
Are those full-time professors? Or
that is a good question.
Of
I actually have not checked.
Because I doubt that Black professors actually make up 2% of full-time profs. I believe more,
you think more?
Of contract.
This is a dated study as well. This is from 2019 to 2020. So hopefully maybe at the end of this year, we'll see the 2022 to 2023 school year made a bigger difference. So with the idea of that rough estimate in mind, what is something that the University of Winnipeg has done well to support you as a Black academic in the time that you've been here? And then what recommendations do you have for the future going forward to, maybe help have this number rise, hopefully, and in the University of Winnipeg specifically?
I mean, that's a very important question. Again, I don't know, because unlike the US and some other places, in Canada, we don't generally have disaggregated data on Black profs, if Black anything. What they usually do is to group everyone within this category of racialized peoples of visible minority, the older terminology they used. Yeah, so which doesn't give you the fuller picture of things. But based on what we know here, which the university still doesn't have data to back it up, but we have the data ourselves, right? We know that black professors in this university are not up to 1% of professors, full-time professors in the university. We know ourselves, right? Because we are very few. And I don't think the university had done anything uniquely, like anything that targets black professors in terms of support. The kinds of support we've got, personally for me, had come maybe from my department, from colleagues from different units, but not because the university has a clear, deliberate plan for supporting black profs. So there's nothing really that I know. I know recently the university signed on to the Scarborough Charter, but they did that without consulting any single black professor I know. They didn't ask for our opinion. They just signed on. What if we didn't even agree with the charter, right? So such performative gestures, more or less, is what I think the university is doing much more than actually substantive support for black faculty here, because black professors here have very unique challenges that they deal with based on racism, not EDI specifically. EDI is not the same thing as anti-racism. By EDI, I mean equity, diversity, inclusion, which is the new language for dealing with racism issues. At least that's what many universities seem to be doing. But I don't think that I have benefited from any concrete support from the university beyond, again, my department, colleagues, different units that think that my work makes sense to them. So I don't know what kind of advice to give a university like this beyond saying there has to be, from the top level, the highest level of the university, deliberate will to do something, right? Beginning with hiring more black profs. Every department in the university needs to have at least 1 or 2 black profs for a start. Beginning with that, because again, if you have 5 profs, your number is insignificant to actually do anything. We've been, since 2020 George Floyd saga, I've been on countless committees, hours and hours of meetings, reviewing documents, and nothing concrete had come out of those. So you get exhausted, you get burnt out, you feel your time wasted. So there has to be some kind of will, administrative will, to want to do something. And when that will is there, then they will look around and say, who are the black profs we have? And they invite us and say, what do you think? This is what we are thinking. What do you think? And all that. But outside of that, it just looks like you're fighting or you're struggling. And I don't think I was hired to make the university better in the sense of that's not my work primarily. So yeah, the university has to show commitment that they envision a different kind of university that slowly moves away from the Eurocentric university that we still run. But other than that, I don't think I have any advice to give people who are not willing to change things.
I think that, it perfectly sums it up and how I'm sure a lot of professors are feeling at the moment. I completely agree with your statement. One of my last questions is, in your time here at the University of Winnipeg, or even just as an academic throughout your career, what is a project or research or something that you're part of that you're most proud of, that is something that is a highlight in your career as of today?
That's a difficult one, because I think everything I've done is more or less a highlight for me.
Yeah.
Teaching is really fun. I think I'm excited when I get feedback from students who felt they benefited from my classes, or when students drop by and we have these long conversations about what they are thinking about subjects or topics we discussed in class. I think those are for me the rewarding aspects of this work. In terms of my research again deals with something very serious and difficult. Those things don't make me happy particularly, so I don't consider writing about genocide a kind of an accomplishment. Or when people cite me, it doesn't make me feel like I have achieved something. I just feel it's part of an important work I have to do. So I am much more interested in the kinds of impacts. You know, I had students who were in the sciences and they took my class and decided to go into the arts, and I mean black students. So and felt, yeah, they sort of now understood what they thought they wanted to do with their lives, and one actually is pushing to be a professor herself. So yeah, those are for me what makes me feel okay. Yeah, I'm not doing badly, but I've also done a couple of research works on the Holocaust, on genocide in Nigeria and Rwanda, and published a book, and still are doing that kind of project with a couple of people, and we have books in progress. So.
Thank you. My last question actually is something you partially touched on earlier, talking about you cannot let other people's words or definitions of you define your version of success and how you see yourself, and also how you just mentioned that there was a student who was in sciences that after taking your course was inspired to switch to arts and pursue something that they were really passionate about. So with that in mind, what advice or parting words can you give to Black academics who are undergrads right now or who haven't even started university about the world that they're going to step into, and how to, whether it's a career in academics or just being in an academic space, what advice can you give to Black students?
The usual ones, right? I think it's first to recognize that one is full, right? You don't need validation in order to consider yourself good enough, right? That is not to say you don't need to prepare. You have to study hard. You have to prepare yourself and be ready to take advantage of opportunities. Especially for Black folks, you don't know when those opportunities would present themselves. So being ready and, but most importantly, is to find things that sustain some kind of joy for a profession like this. I believe anyone who wants to be an academic must really love to teach and love to research. So find that self-joy, stick to it, keep your dreams in view, and don't let anyone make you feel you are less yourself. Importantly as well, don't overwork yourself. Black academics tend to overwork themselves a lot because they want to prove a point. They feel they have to do double the work. So sometimes they sacrifice family, other aspects of their relationships in order to meet, different targets, do all the kinds of works. But yeah, it's again being content with who you are, I think matters so much.
That is great advice. I think as a Black student, a Black academic, hopefully I'm working on it. That is great words to live by and to follow. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to me about this. I really appreciate this, and thank you for watching.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Yatatu.
Thank you.